o'clock. And this is a meeting of the Land Use Committee of Community Board number 8, Robinson County. We have one major item on the agenda tonight relating to conservation, preservation, and natural areas. But there is a late starter of a matter as a matter of necessity. Are there any people here with respect to the building on
135
West.
135 West 225th Street?
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
Let me address,
Yes.
I may have the committee's approval, that issue first. And I will try and make it as brief as possible. There are residents of the building and of the community who have written to the board raising the issue of historic windows and the like. I guess it's just the windows and the frames that they maintain should be protected. The building is in the process of trying to remove and replace all of those windows. And we invited their manager to attend tonight. He could not do so and instead wrote a note which I'd like to read because it sets forth the opposite position. Dear Mr. Murdoch, unfortunately, I dropped him this note earlier today. Dear Mr. Murdoch, unfortunately, I have other commitments that prevent me from attending the Land Use Committee meeting this evening. I am the managing member of 135 West 225th Street LLC, which acquired the building in 2021. We appreciate the committee's interest in the building, which contains 82 residential apartments, 72 of which are rent stabilized. The existing steel windows are single pane and lack any insulation. It is almost impossible to heat the apartments properly with these windows, and they are the source of numerous tenant complaints in cold weather. In addition, this building is subject to LL 97, the sort 97 of 2019 with respect to energy conservation measures, and would face substantial fines for non-compliance beginning in 2030. In 2023, we learned about a Con Ed energy rebate program pursuant to the multifamily energy efficiency program that could help us meet our local law obligations. We subsequently conducted seepage studies of the windows in order to qualify for the rebate. In January 2024, the building was approved for the rebate, and we began investigating options for financing the cost of the windows and getting bid. In November of 2024, ownership was informed that the rebate would expire if the windows were not purchased and installed, and we selected a manufacturer and installer. The binding window contract for over 800 windows was signed on February 10, 2025. These windows have now been fabricated and installation is underway. The window installation is scheduled to be completed in mid-July. We have met with staff of Landmarks Preservation, and they are aware of the window installation. I hope this information is helpful, and I'm happy to answer any additional questions that the committee might have. That's the presentation. The issue here starts with a question, if I may. Would somebody who is from that building and who has been championing the preservation of those windows do two things for us, please? One, could you tell us what there is about them that is historic? And number two, why you haven't gone to Landmarks about this previously?
Chantel, are you there? Would you like to take that question?
Yeah, I can answer that. We did file an RFE in 2021 with Landmarks, and they responded saying it merited further study, but it wasn't within the agency's priority across the 5 boroughs. And apparently they just got back to one of the tenants today saying,
Let me stop you and ask you if you could state for the record your name.
Chantal
introduce.
McLaughlin, Chantal McLaughlin, resident of 135 West 225. I just got a late breaking news today that one of the representatives from LBC wrote a tenant that if they're removing the windows, they will not further consider the building for landmarking.
That's the norm. Yeah, that's what realtors do, is the first thing is they get rid of the landmark. That solves their problem. I know,
Mm.
did it at the football.
Could I interrupt
Uh,
for a second?
And you have on this, but I'm not gonna call on her unless she wants to, the former chair of the Landmarks Preservation Commission and its finest public servant. So now, what is historic about these windows?
I think person.
So my name is Callie Davis. I've lived in the building since I was 14. So I grew up here. Very important to me. The windows are original from 1937. They're one of the only buildings in New York City that have their original 1937 or, of that era Art Deco windows. And, I do sympathize with the building and the energy concerns. But one, we were given about 2 days notice before this all started, which we all think was kind of a tactic so that we were not able to organize. And then, if we were able to organize, I think a lot of us would have argued for at least windows that were more architecturally, visually in keeping with the style. So sorry, that was a little bit more than you asked for, but to answer your question directly, they are the original 1937 Art Deco windows, and that's very unique.
Yes, and
This
they
is
are,
not the first- hold it, this is not the first time this has been before the board. Right.
Correct. No, the window it's the
I
first.
did
time the
not know
window-
this was the Caro building.
Yeah, this is the first time the window replacement, which they announced less than 24 hours in advance, is before the board. The LPC application, RFP was before the board.
Governor has her hand up.
Are
Rita?
all of the windows in the building subject to that historic connotation or designation? Or in your?
Well, until like 2 weeks ago when they started replacing them, yes.
All the little ones are original casement.
This is the original, this is the
Modern
modern.
update.
It's just like two windows and a big corner.
I think we need. Is there anybody who wants to add anything? Sherita, Madam Chair.
Can I interrupt just if you want to speak, raise your hand in the Zoom and we'll call on you in order. Thank you.
Sherita, you're on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, looking at this photograph, and this type of steel casement window is a challenge for preservation because they do fail to meet current, let's just say, sustainability standards. But there are many, many, many manufacturers of windows that are similar to this that would meet with the commission's rules for replacement of windows. And if the building had been designated, and it certainly looks like it's a good example of an Art Deco style, then the commission would have been able to review the window replacement. Obviously, the new windows in the photograph they don't match anything about the original style. And this is the kind of thing where the community board raising something directly to the commission's staff would raise a flag immediately.
You have as usual gotten to the point. You
I
never
try.
miss, you never, ever miss. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my recommendation that we notify Landmarks tomorrow that we would like to have the status quo maintained and for them on an emergency basis take a look into the situation.
And
Any comments?
it- just,
Yeah.
there are time considerations. If the building, received a permit from the building department and no opposition or objection was raised within 40 days of that permit being issued, it's past that time. But if the permit was issued more recently, then possibly there's that. But the commission can act quickly. They can reach out to the Department of Buildings. They can advise the commissioner that the community and residents of the building object to this proposal. And it could, in the best of all worlds, be calendared for consideration at the earliest meeting possible, which I believe is next Tuesday. So if the board is so inclined, or the committee is so inclined, this really would need to be fast-tracked.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to add that there's been a lot of development in Marble Hill recently, we've been discovered by real estate investors based in New Jersey, and they're buying up
We are aware of it.
old houses
Yeah.
and they're polishing them. And anyway, a lot of these companies, they hide behind LLCs, but I did some property research and some of these owners seem to be in business together, including the folks that demolished Villa Rosa Bon Hur, which is quite infamous in your community, despite stop work orders from the city and asbestos abatement issues. I don't think they have permits from the DOB for this, because I contacted Senator Jackson's office and they said they don't need scaffolding for this kind of job, which I find shocking. There's a lot of safety concerns beyond the architectural crime that's happening with this project. And obviously, these folks have been buying up multi-million-dollar buildings in the neighborhood. So they have the money to buy architecturally beautiful windows that match the original character, that are also energy efficient and meet local law 97.
Well, that may be the ultimate compromise, if this were calendar.
Yeah.
Ladies and
I would
gentlemen,
li- I
I
would
would
like-
like to hear something to the contrary, and given the weight of the other matters and the showing here made, I would like to move that we formally request, the land use committee formally request landmarks preservation. This is for you, Farah. This has to go out to first thing,
Okay.
if it's adopted. We formally request the Landmarks Preservation Commissioner to grant on an emergency basis review of an application to preserve and maintain the windows in the event that Landmarks concludes that they are historic and worth preservation.
And do we want to mention anything aside from maintaining those windows, to have them replace them with a similar?
They will do that as a matter of course. They have that meeting.
Hands are raised.
Yes, I see a hand.
Two hands.
I see two hands.
Hi,
Well,
I
you're
just-
not this- but that's
Yes,
fine.
ma'am, go ahead.
Claire.
the tenants created a statement that Carlos Steele was prepared to read. If the
good.
board would give him 10 minutes to read, it would cover all of the concerns that people
And
have.
let me suggest to you that when you're winning, it's a good time to quit.
Send me the concerns on an email
Yeah.
to, you have my email, but send it to bx08@cb.nyc.gov, so we can include that with everything.
Include in it a request to the Department of Buildings, copy this to DOB, Farah. We request that if no permit has yet issued, that it be delayed pending review by landmarks.
And then Carlo, I believe, had his hand up. Delayed pending review
It
by.
was a reference to reading our prepared statement. Since we are winning, I will refrain from
Hey.
that.
Hey.
Okay.
But I do want to add, Chairman, Roederer, that, we are eternally grateful for your assistance with this, situation because, the building is extremely dear to us. We understand its inherent value, both, as a historical exemplar of the Art Deco and a streamlined modern style, and also the light and ventilation that the casement windows do provide. If if there are changes, they should be really in respect to the aesthetic properties of the building in order not to further degrade any sort of image that the building does have. It is the anchor of Marble Hill, and it should be treated as such.
I would like, oh, Sharita.
Yeah, one more thing. I noticed that Frampton Tolbert was somewhere on the screen. He's the director of the Historic Districts Council, and I'm asking him if we can enlist them to rush a letter to consider this building as well at landmarks.
Oh, yes, this is Frampton Tolbert. Yes, I've been in touch with the residents of the building, including Chantal, and happy to write a letter of support to go along with the community board's letter.
Thank you.
Very much.
Great, great.
Then, let me, if I may, then do the following. You've heard the proposed resolution. Is there a second?
Second,
Okay.
no, discussion? or-
Yeah, I just wanna know.
I know, but let me have this second first. Do I have a second?
Mhm.
For us to send a letter.
Okay. Now, David.
As I recall last year, one of, when they first sort of came before us, but they wanted a hold, there was an issue about the brickwork. Is that right? Cause I mean, and I think there's a good example of the rust brick versus the brown brick.
I think the issue is that some tenants were afraid of tenant harassment and they didn't want the owners to know that we were pursuing landmarking. I didn't agree with that, but here we are.
But at this
So let
point,
me-
if let me make a suggestion to you. One more sentence in the letter to Landmark. We respectfully suggest that. in
Yes,
connection with-
I had one other thing that I wanted to say, and I have no idea if it's in the letter.
Please, please,
We respectfully
we
suggest.
respectfully suggest that Landmarks in its consideration of the tenant's request
The tenant's request.
for designation, convene a meeting between representatives of the proponents and the owner to explore potential resolution.
Mhm.
Period.
Are we mentioning the facade or anything in here?
No.
Or just that? Okay, got it. Thank you.
I think it gives everybody that
Yeah.
flexibility.
All right. Anything else on the resolution? I have a motion, I have a second. All those in favor, hands please.
All are approved. All are,
All right.
you have a, yes, you have approval.
Ladies and gentlemen, before you head off feeling good, let me just tell you one thing. The next item on the agenda relates to an attempt that is being made by the city of New York to undermine and eliminate community boards from any meaningful role in housing or the like of the city of New York. There is before the Charter Revision Commission, which neither fulfills the title of charter or revision, a proposal to bar community boards and even the city council from participating in any way in the process of any ULURP application for housing. Later on in this meeting, I will ask the committee to join me and I believe the chair of the board in opposing that request. And I will testify then to that effect at next meeting of the revision commission. But let me make something very clear to all and sundry. I am a member of the New York City Housing and Development Corporation, which provides the financing for most of the affordable housing in this city. In instances where people come before us, not in a ULURP context, but otherwise, and seek to do a major change in the community, whether it be to add or subtract, I make it very clear to the president that until such time as I've heard from the community board involved, its views, I will not exercise my vote as the governor's representative to that committee in favor of the application, and will move to have it set aside. Let me be very clear. In the event this is passed, I will do that with every single application that comes before the committee. Because the communities of New York City and the people of the city have a right to be heard. There is a passion abroad nowadays for authoritarian, single-centered government, whether it be on the local level or it be on the national level. It is unacceptable in a democracy, and as the former president of the Young Republicans in New York, I repudiate it. It is not appropriate. And I will tell you, I'm ashamed to have said that I was a Republican.
It's okay. It's okay.
No, it's terrible. What they are trying to do, what the mayor is trying to do, and what the city is trying to do, and what they're trying to do in Washington, is say to Americans, listen, I wasn't born here. I was an immigrant who got citizenship. All right? I prize that. I prize the democracy of it. I am a Holocaust survivor, so I've seen the contrary results. That's what's going to happen to the city, and that's what's going to happen to this nation at the rate we're going. I apologize.
We're just not reclaiming your Republican history on that.
I'm sorry. It makes me very upset.
Sure.
But it's
All right.
it's very respectable to both acknowledge and admit it. Thank you, Chuck.
It makes me very upset. In any event, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for attending on this issue. It is an important one. You've demonstrated the benefits of a democracy, and I thank you. Now we turn to the other front of the evening. We have something in this community that exists only in two parts of the city of New York. It's called the Special Natural Area District. One portion of it is in Staten Island, and the other portion is in this community board district. Its purpose is to preserve natural features, whether they are trees, topography, vegetation, or the like. That doesn't mean that they cannot be changed or altered. It means that in order for that to happen, you're supposed to get a permit from the Department of Buildings, which will, when it sees a SNAD incident, is supposed to come to the community board and say, what is your view on the subject? Again, to come to the community, as an example you have in here tonight. And in the event there is a violation of SNAD, the Department of Buildings is supposed to respond to it by action. And the Department of Buildings is supposed to issue a violation. And if it's sustained, the City Planning Commission is supposed to, at that point, figure out what the penalty will be. Again, I have a personal interest in this. I was the Commissioner of Buildings when the building code, as currently adopted, was formulated. So that this is something that, again, I have close to my heart. And I disclose that interest proudly. What has happened here now has a historic background also. Under the tail end of the prior administration, that of Mr. de Blasio, during the entire current administration, the City Planning Commission has sought to undermine SNAD. It did so first by trying to repeal it. And again, in the City of Yes proposal, it did so again by seeking to repeal it. The City Council, to its great credit, declined that invitation. And perhaps that's why the administration now proposes to remove the City Council from any consideration on urban renewal matters. It seems to me that at this time, when people talk about the climate, when they talk about the environment, when they talk about nature, they ought to be talking also about it at the local level. This community is one that people come to because it is one fit for people and fit for living. Whether it's because of their trees, or the attitude of the people, or the way the community as a whole exists. But the efforts by city planning and, in this instance, the Department of Buildings, in failing and refusing to enforce SNAD and its preservationist and environmentally friendly approaches are alien to their culture. Seems to me that is entirely inappropriate. And so 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, this community board at its full board meeting voted unanimously with one recusal to chide and ask both the Department of Buildings and the City Planning Department and Commission to rethink their approach and attitude. Now, I can't say enough about how bad this is, but you will remember when this first came before the committee, you each received a copy of photographs on one specific example of where the work was going on. The building inspector who visited the site either was blind or struck by lightning as he did his inspection. The last time I saw that kind of behavior was when, with the help of Frank Hogan, we tried to reorganize that building department. It sounds like we are there yet again. And so what I am suggesting to you on the subject, putting aside any specific piece of property, is the following. I think it is time that this board passes an appropriate set of resolutions that make clear our distaste for this kind of attitude. One such approach would be, since you don't want to do the job, you don't need the manpower devoted for it, and we ought to cut your budget. And so my first recommendation would be, and I'm willing to hear anything anyone says, but they have been put on specific notice. My first recommendation would be that we recommend to the council members representing this district that they reduce the budget of both the city planning department and of the Department of Buildings by 10%. Now, buildings can least afford it. City planning has more than enough resources without it. So that's one recommendation. I'm going to ask you for yours in a few moments. The second is, I see that the representative of the distinguished district attorney of Bronx County is present. Are you listening, Jeffrey? Jeffrey?
Yes, yes, thank you.
I'm going to ask you, sir, and I will provide you with the photographs showing in one of the most recent incidents, the men working on it, the destruction that was wrought in violation of SNAD, up and down, and nobody could see. I have spoken with the Bronx Borough Commissioner. He said he has referred it to his Inspector General. Judge Clark knows that I do not kid about this matter at all. May I recommend, sir, if the committee approves the recommendation, that your office take a look as to what is going on in that department nowadays. I can tell you from personal experience, I put a fair number of people away with the help of Frank Hogan during my tenure as commissioner. It smells awful that we're back there again. Judge Clark knows me long and well, and I think credits me. So I would recommend, if I may, that you have a conversation with her about this issue, if my colleagues agree with me. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, I'd love to hear your views as to what we want to be doing here, because this can't go on.
Well, yeah, Chuck, I think suggesting that, the budget be cut for city planning and DOB, when at the same time we're saying they're actually not doing anything about SNAD, there's something of an inherent contradiction in holding those two positions. And to pick a figure like 10%, which seems arbitrary, I don't think, you know, where do we get 10% from as opposed to 5%? Yeah, so I don't think that's the right approach. Look, there's no question that city planning finds SNAD a nuisance. They tried to, you know, we had a subcommittee, as you recall, a few years ago, when there was a proposal to alter the SNAD regulations, largely because people in Staten Island wanted to alter the SNAD regulations, which we did not want to do. And fortunately, we were able to get rid of that proposal, and you know, and that was good. The real question is, to whom does DOB and city planning report? Because those are the people we need to bring our case to. The city council members, the mayor's office, we have.
It's solely in the mayor's office.
Right.
Fortunately, believe it or not, this is another contradiction. Fortunately, one of the deputy mayors is Adolfo Carrion.
Yes.
Who has, to my knowledge, he served as chair of the HDC. I have seen him. He has been splendid, even though I criticized him when he worked for Mr. Stagg. But I will tell you, that is one person we would. There is another alternative, if I may. I really believe that it is time that we also reform city planning. And let me show you what I mean by that. At present, the commissioners, the members of the commission, are comprised of appointees of the borough presidents and the mayor. Each of the borough presidents appoints one member of city planning, and the remainder are appointed by the mayor.
Mm.
The mayor, without approval of anybody, appoints the chairman of city planning. And what I would like to do is to have, over the course of the summer, a subcommittee of this committee work on a proposed reform of city planning. And let me tell you what I have in mind. I believe the chair of city planning should be either elected, which I do not favor, or subject to the approval of the New York City Council, so that there can be a review of qualifications, biases, and the like. And I believe that every member of the commission should be reviewed by the city council in terms of their qualifications. It's a political patronage position now with qualifications that include either you are a lawyer, or you are an architect, or an engineer, or a city planner.
Mhm.
And I would add one more, that you have served 1 year on a local community board, so that they understand what community is all about. Those are my recommendations for city planning. A, make each commissioner and the chair subject to the approval of the city council. 2, require that each commissioner have served at least 1 year on a community planning board, so that they know what community is all about, and not just they get paid, they come 1 day a week if they come that, and that's what they do.
Yeah, I mean, Chuck, if I may,
Yeah.
I don't know, how extensive our argument has to be. You know, I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I think we're giving ourselves a bigger assignment than we necessarily have to take on in order to address the issue here, which is, we have abundant examples of where there have been violations of the SNAP regulations. We have photographs, et cetera. And yet,
Nothing.
no matter who comes out there there doesn't seem to be a violation. They can't seem to find anything wrong. There are really only, there's only one council member who represents the SNAD in the Bronx. I don't know whether there's 1 or 2 in Staten Island. 2, okay. So, yeah, so those are the only council members for whom this is an issue. For the rest of
The
the
chief of staff of the second Bronx member is on the
yeah, I'm not saying that they won't go along with it or have any interest in it. I'm just saying this is an issue that affects a very small number of council members on the, you know, on the entire council staff. I think we want to try to get to the specific issue here, which is that SNAD is not being enforced. And that city planning has given us examples already, you know, based on their proposed reorganization of SNAD or redefinition of SNAD, that they have no real interest in enforcing SNAD regulations. So, you know, I don't know that we need to go about reorganizing city government in order to achieve the goal we want, which is to enforce the SNAD regulations.
Let me say this, I agree with your point, but I do think that there is no way you can get city planning to pay attention. The DOB is a different issue. There's no way you can get them to pay attention unless they see a downside risk.
Mm.
And the downside risk would be finally to have reorganization of CPC. They love their job. I would like to see us at least say that we should, failing this, take a good hard look at reorganizing city plan. Let me make it clear. They crossed the line when they proposed that not only the community boards, but the city council be excluded from urban renewal companies, ULURP. How did they cross the line? Is that the city council stood with the community boards on these issues. My point in that is, it is important that they realize, and that the city council realizes, that this is a issue that involves the integrity of the city of New York. Because you can't have look, there's a simple answer, I'm a lawyer. I could bring a mandamus action against them to compel it. I didn't propose that because that takes too long and all sorts of other hassle. I propose instead that one, we suggested either City Planning Commission and the City of New York do something about preservation. And let me be very clear. Both the president of the city council and the current governor and the former governor, each to my knowledge, have taken a strong stand in favor of communities. Not necessarily on this measure, but in favor of the subject in whole. That's gonna have a significant impact. One of those two may actually become mayor of New York. May. Good, bad, or indifferent. But my point in all of this is, we've got to make it clear, this can't go on. We talk about affordable housing. You and I have had this conversation with our colleagues on this board now for years. It's not affordable when they build affordable housing. Affordable may be to people who live on the upper side.
Right.
But it sure as hell isn't affordable to the mainstream population of the city of New York.
No, we've agreed.
If you have 10 apartments in a 200 apartment building, the whole building is declared affordable. And the AMI is geared to as we've gone through it and with up to now, the AMI is geared to New Rochelle, Scarsdale, Roslyn, and Great Neck, not to the people of the South Bronx. You can't do this stuff anymore.
All right, well, Chuck, you have a lot more experience, you know, from your background. I defer to you on what you think is the best way to move
What I would
forward.
recommend, you are right. I needed the leveling effect that you always have on. Thank you. But what I would recommend are two things. I would recommend a resolution to go to the executive committee and then to the board that says two things. Three things. One, that we request that the district attorney of Bronx County look into how it is that the building department has been functioning in this fashion. You don't get sudden blindness when you go out on a job. That's why I wanted to put these inspectors in green uniforms without pockets.
Right.
All right?
Yes.
So
I understand.
Darcel Clark is a person who has enormous understanding of people and issues. She was a superb health division judge. She's really good. She'll decide whether there's a basis or not. But at least it'll scare the hell out of them for a few months. Number two, I recommend that we have a resolution, and the same resolution that calls upon the city of New York to do two things. Either reconstitute the city planning commission or revise the way it is selected, its members and their qualifications. Those are the resolutions, one for buildings, the other for city planning. Now, anybody else, I'm still going overboard. Go ahead.
We talked in a slightly different context of, having a resolution recommending that, there be an office of the community board ombudsman in city planning, who could represent us, as well as the other 50, community boards.
It's a good idea. Can we add that to the resolution?
Add CV ombudsman into,
The Department of City Planning.
or the, okay, Department of City Planning.
Good, yes.
Sharita has her hand up as well.
All right. Sharita.
Sharita, I'm sorry.
And Mark.
Oh, and Marty.
No, it
excuse me.
actually is Sherida.
Thank
But Chuck is special.
My apologies.
So if you're going to ask board for a resolution about restructuring, may I suggest that that resolution also be in the comments to the Charter Commission where that information
would be.
structuring is
It
embedded?
would be.
And just to remind everybody that the 11 members of the Landmarks Preservation Commission who have similar qualifications and location requirements all go before the city council. It's not a fun process, but you get to explain your qualifications, and those commissioners are unpaid. So the city planning commissioners, I think, should exactly have the same experience and ability to defend their position and appointment to the city council. And I strongly would endorse that, although I can't vote here, but I think that's a really good thing. As far as DOB and city planning and the regulation of SNAD, the SNAD zoning text has loopholes in it, which the current department takes advantage of. And DOB, because of the way they deal with inspections, they frequently go to a site and there's no work going on. So if there's no work going on, they don't issue a violation and they say the complaint is closed. So what we always advise people in my architectural practice is just keep complaining, and make sure your community board and your council member are copied every time you make those complaints so that they can raise it as well, because it requires that echo chamber effect. But I think your recommendation for the restructuring of the City Planning Commission is excellent, and do hope that you adopt it. And now I'll shut up.
Let me make, no, never do that, please. Let me just make it clear on one point. There is legislation introduced by the council member for this district, Eric Dinowitz, to provide that the photographic evidence shall be considered by
Yes.
the Department of Building.
Yes.
That has been there and lingering for a while. And maybe we ought to recommend that it be reported out and voted on immediately as a separate part of this resolution. Let me
Good
also
recommendation.
let me add one more part, please. I think if people take a look at it, and if my suggestion about Judge Clark having a good hard look at it, there are videos here, in the case of one of the buildings, of the work going on and people present as it was going on. Because the neighbors were accused. I recused myself from the matter, as you will recall, because my daughter was one of the neighbors. But my daughter, therefore, had learned about this game, and they were taking pictures as this was going on. All right, so there is stuff that has to be dealt with here. Any other suggestions? Marty? Mr. Olcott.
Marty?
Marty?
Yeah, I still find it hard to comprehend how the neighbors can complain about trees being cut down. And when the inspectors come, there's no trees to see, so therefore they couldn't be cut down and no violations. So their blindness certainly offends me. But offends me also, and I think in your bill of particulars, you know, when I misunderstood the document that we got from the Landmarks Preservation Commission last week, which indicated that 2 weeks ago, the very issues we've been complaining about on that particular site the changing of the landscaping, the building of a garage, the trees being dropped, all those things. Suddenly, 2 weeks ago, new applications went to LPC, and the following week, LPC approved them all. Your letter to LPC saying you're not involved with the law for SNED, far as I know, had no impact. But I think whatever resolution we come up with has to include that strange course of events in which LPC got involved in something they shouldn't have been involved with in the first place.
Let me add something to what you just said. The people involved in the last of those buildings came before this community board through their council and said, we can do this because the Landmarks Commission has granted us a permit to take care of natural or historic features, and therefore it's legal. In writing to the Supreme Court, Bronx County, their lawyer has advanced the same argument. And so the permits issued by Landmarks supposedly supersede SNAD, because SNAD specifically provides, as does the entire zoning ordinance, that it shall be enforced by DOB and city planning, not by Landmarks any more than by sanitation. All right? So you are right. We'll have to craft it so that Landmarks gets brought into this review as well. So I see one more hand. Abba, you're not in the natural area district, Mr. Bluffer.
Correct. You're not, Mr. Chairman, but I think that it's part of why I want to raise the point that these issues do pertain as well to families and people outside the natural district. As you know, we went through this recently in Van Cortlandt, where 3 trees over 80 years old were recently cut down for construction of a 6-story building. And the broader issue is that my understanding is something like 30% at least of the city's tree cover is on private property. And so how do we balance the fact that development has to occur and should occur in the city with the fact that a not negligible fraction of the city's tree cover, in theory, could just disappear with no restrictions in areas that do not enjoy the protection of the SNAD? So how can that be brought into this conversation as well?
Right, of course. All of these points have been converging here. And so let me see if I can restate the high points of what I would propose as amendment. 1, the city planning department and commission be the subject of revision so that each member of that body, including the chairman of the commission and director of the Department of City Planning, henceforth be subject to review and approval by the city council. 2, that there be examined whether or not the Department of City Planning and City Planning Commission ought to be the subject of a revised structure, but that should be a subject for them and for others to look at in the first instance. 3, that the Landmarks Commission, all of its members and its chair, likewise be subject to review and approval by the city council. 4, that we request of District Attorney Darcel Clark and her office that they examine the issues concerning the Department of Buildings and their conduct of investigations of SNAD. With those high points stated, do I have a second to that resolution?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? On the motion to approve, all those in favor, please raise your hand. I believe we have a unanimous.
Unanimous, yeah.
I want to thank you all. Sleep tonight. I believe, Farah, correct me if I'm wrong, but we are done.
We have.
Oh, no, I have,
Minutes.
I have two more. I need a resolution to authorize Julie and or me, if the full board and executive committee approve, to mention these questions of reorganization and the structuring issues at the next charter revision commission public hearing. So we need, in addition to the 4 points mentioned, that the chair of the board and or chairman of the land use committee be authorized to so testify before
When is that?
23rd.
I don't think the board meeting is until the 28th,
The
right?
executive is on the 16th.
That's July.
Yeah, so it just exact, not the full board.
Just exact. That's a good point. Thank you, David. It's always you catch all. Everybody okay on that one too? Okay. What else do we have, Farah?
Minutes, and I never.
Van Cortlandt.
Did the, roll call.
All right, let me do the minutes. I am always remiss in that regard. Are there any comments or questions, corrections or admissions or corrections or alterations with respect to the minutes? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve? I move, second.
Second.
Any objections? Done. Report from Van Cortlandt. Are you there, Marty?
I'm still here. I have nothing really new, sadly, I have nothing really new to report. What's going on is going on, but I would love to hear from Abba if he would indicate any changes that have not been aware of.
Yeah, no, thank you, Marty. Two quick issues I would like to bring up. So the first is I was alerted to this by a neighbor, as a matter of fact. It appears that the innovative development at 38 Sedgwick Avenue has exceeded the height which it is supposed to be allowed to build. So I believe that's 71 feet. And in Laura's opinion, they have exceeded that. So I'm wondering what, if anything, can be done to check and make sure that they are actually building up to the allowed limit.
Immediately report to DOB immediately for their inspection.
Okay, I don't know how to report that to DOB.
Well, send it to us, but when you make a 311 to DOB, that's what you'll have to do, that there's a height violation.
There's also an issue possibly because this area is in the flight path of JFK and of LaGuardia. So I do not know whether or not there are any flight restrictions applicable to this site.
Okay, so what should we do next in terms of next follow-ups? What would you like me to do?
My suggestion is that your group immediately get something in writing to Farah, who will then get it
Okay.
put through 311 and call the DOB tomorrow.
Excellent. Okay, so I will follow up with Laura right after this call, and we will send an email to Farah. So thank you for that. The second point I would like to bring up is that there is a
By the
steady.
way, before
Yes.
you leave the first point, how do you know they exceeded the height restriction?
So this was passed on to me by a neighbor, Laura Chenvin. She was not able to make the call tonight, so I do not know how she reached that conclusion. But I will, in the email that I follow up to with Farah, I will ask her to explain her reasoning.
Please do, because guesswork is not going to cut it.
Understood.
If there's an excess of it, there is a provision and there is a pace that where there is an excess of a building higher than allowed under the zoning ordinance, that height must be removed or sealed off. That is the 96th Street East Side case, and it is also at 1 Lincoln Plaza. I know,
I live 5 blocks away from there when it happened.
all right?
No, understood. I know this committee has encyclopedic knowledge of these sorts of things. So I will follow up with an email. I will ask Laura to explain, and that way we'll learn if there's something worth following up on. So I appreciate your attention to that matter. Let me briefly raise.
You really gotta, she's really gotta have a basis rather than cluster.
Good. I'm simply the messenger here, passing it along. She emailed me because she felt were very important, but I will ask her to explain very clearly in writing how she reached
Let
this.
me be clear. Unless there's something substantive here, it is not appropriate for the district manager then to call the department.
Understood and agreed, and I will put that in the email. And certainly, if there's no merit to it, nobody's asking any action to be taken. So I will be clear, and I will say though equally, Laura is a relatively she is an even-handed person, and she's experienced, and I do not think she would cry wolf if she didn't believe there was something legitimate here. So. Okay, so I will follow up on that point. Let me raise a second point quickly as well, which is that we have seen, and this is documented now in a few different places, a rapid increase in the number of crimes and quality of life events in Van Cortlandt Village. I do not know if these are correlated with the recent high rate of development that has taken place in the neighborhood, but they are concerning. And to cite a few examples, this past weekend, 2 people were robbed at the intersection of Cannon and Orloff. Last week, in front of 69 Stevenson Place, the SRO type development in the neighborhood, a neighbor reported seeing someone being beaten with a pipe or something to that effect. There is an open air drug market at the corner of Bailey and 238th Street. I see at least one person on the call nodding. It's not subtle.
Yeah, we've been calling the police and doing sweeps constantly there, just so you know.
Which is great.
It seems to me that I recall the DA's representative was present here. And that's something you might want to look at also. Let me, if I may hold you just for a minute.
Sure.
And this is really directed to Mr. Burke. Mr. Burke, I spoke to your principal before the enactment of City of Yes concerning the provision on SROs. In the document proposing to lift the restrictions on SROs, there was a claim that it was enacted, the restrictions were enacted and pushed because the then commissioner sponsor had concluded he didn't want unemployed young men living in single apartments. I was that commissioner, I was that sponsor, and I'm proud to say I closed more SROs than have ever been closed before or since. They were closed because of a distinguished New Yorker by the name of Frank S. Hogan. The district attorney told me before I took office that they are the primary source of crime and of fire and of disease among housing constituents in the city of New York, and they ought to be stopped. That was confirmed by Howard Brown, the then health commissioner, and confirmed by Bob Lowry, the fire commissioner. That's why we did it. And the city planning report championing the return of SROs is just another testament to the quality of the city planning commission. But
I don't see him
unfortunately,
here.
pardon me,
Burke.
he left.
I think
He
he's.
left.
He was there.
Was there.
Sanchez's office.
It was where Liam Smith is,
Yeah.
was.
Well, that says a lot. But that's the background, so you all know. Not good.
I-
his title, James?
And you know, the interesting part about it is
Chief
they
of staff.
actually, they've now got a new name for them. And they were advertising it
Yeah.
in your community, Albert. Cozy apartments. They're called cozy apartments.
That's realtor language.
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
Yeah, needs a little work.
What can I tell you? She in any event thought they were a good idea.
So just to bring it back, I mean, I think the question in the mind of many people in this community is what to do here. We are rapidly approaching the point where people are afraid to leave their homes at night. And
You have a very able police commissioner now. She doesn't listen to anyone. And I think we should have a communication from you setting forth the information, and we will get it to Commissioner Tisch.
And
Right.
again, to go to the public safety.
Exactly.
Oh,
Which we
Yeah.
keep telling them this is covered through public safety. And that all the officers are there, the neighborhood officers, they have been doing sweeps, they have been listening about the state of Bailey Avenue overall, which touches on Van Cortlandt Village. There are a lot of issues there. They keep going.
I have seen, I will say though, I have seen no difference. And I think others would back me up on that.
Well, I believe that public safety meets a week from tonight, and their chairman is one of your neighbors in Van Cortlandt Village. So I'd encourage you to go to the public safety meeting a week from tonight at the 50 precinct. Probably at 7 o'clock, but it's fair, yeah, okay. So that would be the appropriate venue.
I'm sorry that Ms. Paulson had to leave. Because one of the things I wanted to point out to everybody, she is the former chair of Landmarks. So nobody knows that one better than her. And she is chairman of the Riverdale Conservancy.
Riverdale Nature Preservancy.
Nature, yeah. Yeah. All right, anything else? On the motion to adjourn.
No, we haven't, did we do roll call?
I'll do a quick roll call. Thank you. Charles Morgler,
Yes.
Marty Wolfov. I see you. Bob Bender,
I'm here.
Lee Chang is absent. Adriana Rivera,
Here.
Daniel Rowan,
Here.
Jessica Sosa,
Here.
and Laura Spalter, absent. You have a quorum.
I thank you. And good night.
Say good night, Gracie.
Jeffrey Pena just raised his hand.
Oh.
What email?
Sorry. Hey, guys.
Jeffrey?
Yes. I just wanted to, before you guys go, just let you know that I've been taking notes. And I will let, my supervisor as well as the DA know about your concerns you have with the Department of Building, as well as the quality of life issues that you have. So I'll definitely pass that forward.
Let me just make a point to you.
Mhm.
Judge Clark is really somebody who knows this stuff better than anyone I know. So if you can get that to her, that would be useful. If she needs it, either I or she can easily talk to the borough president who will also tell her. Okay?
Okay. And is this the last meeting or is there one more?
That's the last meeting until September.
Okay. So I'll have to email any updates I have.
And thank you.
Of course. No problem. My pleasure. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.